Hello and welcome to Fast Forward Newsline. My name is Michael Welch. Joining me now is Julian Cooper. She is a longtime producer at CKUW as well as a contributor to the Community News Commons. So thanks for joining us, Julian.
Good day.
So I know that you're talking today about an issue that's been quite close to your heart for some time, and that's the issue of bullying. I wanted to maybe get some sense of a little bit of what you've researched all of the major anti-bullying advocacy sites. Maybe you could tell us, first of all, what are we talking about? We're talking bullying, because a lot of the time there's a sense that, kids in the schoolyard and the big kids, beating up the little kid for his lunch money. So what are we talking about specifically?
We're talking about all kinds of things that can be in school only, or even what's come up to the eye of the media not recently is sibling bullying. And this can be spread from the school to the home or vice versa, from the home to the school, by which a person or people who are picking on a person spreads out that information to others. And the sibling bullying thing has not garnered a whole lot of attention, although it's probably as old as any other kind of bullying. So now they're looking at what are the cost effects to a person's life and their schooling and their home life when this kind of thing occurs at any place, school or home. And we're also talking about workplace bullying, which gets a little more attention than sibling bullying has ever gotten. It doesn't get a whole lot of attention, though. And sometimes people who have suffered bullying as a youngster also suffer it at work because they're on guard and because maybe they learned to be good to people out of the necessity to survive, and also because sometimes being a good person in the first place attracts the bullying, so they may come out as a good person regardless and be bullied. So they could tend to suffer bullying a long time, oftentimes most of their lives.
What specific forms can bullying take?
Bullying can be any kind of, they call it cyberbullying now, or phone bullying. It can also be in physical or verbal form. It can be sloughing people off, like giving them the cold shoulder, with not much obviousness to the bullying. And it can also be in print of any sort, and it can be any and or much of the same, much of all that to one individual.
Okay. So, I mean, I think to people who might think that, well, this is just a regular part of life, kids grow out of it. What do we know about the impacts on people who have been bullied in their youth or even into adulthood?
First, it's not really a part of life, nor is war. Now, what happens is a person who is bullied oftentimes is a bit of a shell of themselves for the first few experiences or few years, and if it carries on, they're quite a bigger shell of what they could be or what they were trying to be, and they're picking up a personality that's remaining that they could find. It's almost like picking up a mask out of a store because your face has been damaged. That's not a very good thing to live with. And on the side of the bully, it's not very healthy for him or her because that person can lose concentration on what the person could be doing that's of value to the society, and also they can cost the school, company, or others all kinds of losses, including monetary damages, training expenses, and whatnot else. And they also slow any production, be it learning or production. And this also happens in the family. The family loses its true viability and its true love and its growing pleasure. So it has an enormous cost, and it should be treated like any war that we're trying to stop. We should do everything we can to try to stop bullying, and we should look at ways to modify into how we're going to best treat it rather than just deciding to do something or just deciding not to do something.
You made that comparison with war, and I know one of the things I think about with war when people come back is something called post-traumatic stress disorder. I don't know, is it an exaggeration to say that people who've been bullied experience anything along those lines?
They can actually have some emotional disturbances. I hate to call it that because the reason why is because some people are misdiagnosed and can be treated as a result with something that's not necessary to their own lives and their own needs. And those who do often are not recognized by the medical system in the first place and other systems that need to support them. And so there's a big battle on to how much we should, for example, you're talking about soldiers, how much we should support them or not. Some of them are homeless, so are bully victims, homeless and not being cared for with the things they do need, i.e. food, and good people to talk to, good relatives, good peers, good expertise. And so it can have an effect, yes. And it can also be whereby somebody's bullied into claiming that effect when they don't have it in order to get any kind of service. And that's a common problem right there because it's costing our medical system. It's also costing the people who have to live by that kind of thing. In making that declaration, they have to then see a counselor or somebody on an ongoing basis in order to keep the benefits that they do have that they've acquired through that means. And that may not be very good for somebody who's really not suffering that and who is actually a strong survivor who would rather benefit by going back to work or carrying on with his life or her life otherwise.
So there's been a lot of it seems like the public is a lot more aware of it lately. We have this thing called Pink T-shirt Day, and I don't know if you could comment on the origins of that particular approach.
That's happened several years ago, and what happened was one fellow had, as I understand it, one fellow had come in with a pink shirt of some sort, and some school peers, who were peers, I guess, decided to turn on this male and bully him. And so what happened was within the next days or so, some people had gathered together and acquired pink T-shirts and tank tops and gave them out, and other people even brought their own to wear or to share, as in more than one. And so there was a sea of pink. Now, on February the 24th or April the 13th of this year, this past year, these were celebrated internationally and in Manitoba and otherwise. One is an international time and is celebrated by the Red Cross, and the other is another time that's also celebrated by the Red Cross. But the Red Cross in Manitoba also says every day is Pink Shirt Day. So now sometimes you hear these events coming up and people tend to wear pink on those days, but they also try to push it, some people personally try to push it further than that, as the Red Cross has been asking us to do.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know that there have been a few very famous incidents where teens actually committed suicide because they were bullied so intensely. Could you comment on what you've referred to as death by bully or bullycide?
Yeah. Death by bully is whereby a person loses their life prematurely, maybe a long time suffering, a slow death, just because their body breaks down from all the damages that they don't know where their next meal is coming from or who's going to get them next, kind of thing. They don't know what kind of securities they have, so they end up having things like heart attacks, whatever. There's also false accidents that are caused by the lack of concentration of the bully himself and or his victim or her victim. And so there's, especially in the workplace, that can happen or even crossing a street while somebody's not concentrating on what they're supposed to be looking at or doing. And so there's that cause. There's all kinds of causes that just prematurely shorten lives to anywhere from the minute to many years short of what it should be.
So it's not just suicide. I mean, there's all sorts of health impacts.
Yeah, and a lot of times people are claiming that those who commit suicide, who are just found out on the day of the suicide, obviously in some cases, that they're mentally ill, and they also use their names in mental health and whatever promotion, and that's not right. A lot of people are just looking for the best way that they can escape this pain, this suffering pain that's just forever picking at them, and so they look for a way out, and the only way out in some cases has been to take their own lives. And I think the best thing we should start recognizing is that we have to take care of the bully problem at the bully source. Look at that. If we can't do it through certain services that have been failing it, look at other services. Look at circles, talking circles. Look at real justice, especially where somebody's been hurt or a long time damaged, or especially where somebody's lost their lives.
Could you comment on that? Because I just wanted to resurrect like a sort of a recent story out of Saskatoon. I know there's been a lot of anti-bullying action since those tragic deaths a few years ago. And I understand that it's been a bit of a rocky road trying to get some things stopping. Just taking that one incident in Saskatoon, what have you discovered about what's behind the hesitation in terms of pushing through anti-bullying bylaw?
There's been a discussion in their City Hall. This is an event where a zero tolerance bill was planned, and it's supposed to be upcoming, I believe, in September. And somebody's saying, no, we should put the brakes on that because this and that. One of their main concerns is that people are going to have justice served on them in a form of criminal charges. And so this hasn't even really run yet, as I understand it, and people are discussing back and forth, should we or shouldn't we? Maybe we should put the brakes and then check this out. Sometimes when you look at things, maybe you shouldn't really stop them and put the brakes on them and then try to modify them. It might be good to look at running them and then modify them as you go. And perhaps that might cause some people to receive justice, especially where it's required, and also to look at ways to look at lighter cases and prevent criminal charges in those cases if the bullies are willing to stop their activities, and also to look at prevention and using things like talking circles, as one person brought up, but going the way of, if you don't like it, move, which one city councillor spoke of. That's not a good thing. That's the same thing as boys will be boys or kids will be kids. That's not a very good way of looking at it. And so there's heavy-duty discussion going on there right now, trying to decide, do we stop it? Do we modify it? Do we keep going?
Yeah. Well, Julie, I know you have some very strong personal experiences in this regard, and you clearly have some very strong opinions, but I want to thank you for taking the time to research this for us.
Well, thank you very much.
You've been watching the Fast Forward Newsline. Fresh edition appears periodically inside this little box. We'd like to thank the Government of Canada, the Social Justice Fund of Unifor, as well as the Community Radio Fund of Canada for providing their sponsorship support. And we also invite people to be sponsors of the Fast Forward Newsline. Just send us a message to greenplanetmonitor.net. My name is Michael Welch. Bye for now.